All right, hello there, YouTube. This is going to be a little different of a video. I'm going to be showing practically my setup, these devices here. So I have, this is my Nintendo Switch 1, and at the very back here, if I can get my camera to focus, come on. All right, you can see above there, it says HAC001 and then an open bracket minus and then a 01. This is a Switch V2. So this is the original Switch, original Nintendo Switch, but the later model. I'm going to get to that. But as you can see from the title here, I'm going to be detailing how best you could use your devices, especially if you are an avid user of the Nintendo family of systems. All right, so I'm going to be starting off with the Nintendo Switch 2. All right, so the reason I'm making this video, I'm going to be working to I should say fix or help to alleviate any problems people had or have with this family of systems. All right, and this is sadly, well, I'd say not like amazingly, this a Nintendo 3DS, right, is the leading system right now. I'd say for the amount of titles it already has, believe it or not, although this is a very tiny system, this is a handheld, this is literally a console. Like, this is the first console in handheld form. Like, the features it has, how it operates, if you knew, you knew. This thing has a built-in home menus with themes, audio, background audio, animations, you name it. But just so I don't get carried away, all right? So I'm going to be giving you some tips for different aspects of each system. All right? So, all right, so Nintendo Switch 2, I'm going to power this on. The first issue that people have, the major problem people have and do complain about quite a lot, is the freaking battery life. All right, the battery life on the Nintendo Switch 2 is not terrible, but I'll get to that. All right, so what I have here, I do have to disconnect it and stuff, and I do have to boot my system up. So, all right, I won't be showing my passcode on this video. That'd be crazy, right? So, pausing, coming back, or in fact, let me see. Let me just put my system down here. I won't even pause the recording. Get this in. Yeah, that's very interesting button there. Very interesting. All right. All right. So let's see. Come on. It is so difficult sometimes that trying to put this in like too quickly is very difficult. Good, I got it. Using my touch screen to put it in. So I'm gonna raise my brightness just so you can see the screen. All right, anywho, right, so this is what I've been playing. You can see the most recently used. I know, right, up to now I didn't get that. I'm a completionist, I'd say it as a YouTuber. If you know the name, you know the name. I like to complete things as much as possible. I've been playing a lot of Capcom games recently, especially Monster Hunter. Anyways, take a lot of hours. But the battery life. So we have chargers, all right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get my adapter from my Nintendo Switch 1. What I found, all right? I made a post about this on my personal social media a while back, a good few months ago, detailing that if you have a cell phone or anything of for that matter, and you're using a speed charger, you're definitely not getting the best out of your battery. All right. Now the Nintendo Switch 2, it might be difficult to see it on the back here. Because I did have this in my back pocket quite a lot walking around. There's a little, I'm not sure if that's from my pants or from the dock. I don't know. There's a little scrape there, if you can see it properly. Struggling to get this thing to freaking focus evenly. So hard. But anyways, this thing uses a lot of juice. And it's a very powerful system. It's running Street Fighter 6 in handheld mode. Even, I mean, graphics might be jotted down a bit, but this freaking thing in handheld mode, So there's a lot of power the system needs. The system has a very big battery, and of course, it's gonna need to be, it's gonna, especially when in the dock, then it's gonna need a lot of energy while it's running, especially in 4K. If you're playing on a 4K television, I think Street Fighter 6, the game needs to be compatible with 4K. I'm not sure, but the point is the system runs a lot of power through there. So the original Switch 2, right, dock, uses, you can take just about any freaking USB once it's a type C, because unlike, this is the Switch 1 charger, right? I'm going to show it right here. This charger right here, this is your ideal if you're someone especially who uses the Nintendo Switch 2 mostly in handheld mode. This is your ideal, all right? Because this is what I would call a slow charger, all right? There's a difference for those of you who knew nothing about that. And I guess you can go online and you can go check around to see whichever. So this is the nitty gritty, all right? So anything that uses, that has a battery that charges up electrically, you can have speed chargers which push the current really fast into the phone, and the phone could display and say that it's 100%, and it's not really. I would get to that, like just like how at gas stations people say that they've been pushing air into their tanks. It's been pushing so fast that the tank clips the pump off extra early, and it's just air in there. Like when you're putting, it's like putting rum or any bit of a alcoholic beverage that kind of fumes up into a cup, and you're pouring it too fast, so it's going to fizz up to the top. All right, and there's a sensor at the top of the cup. Let's say it as the pump in a vehicle. There's a sensor right there in the pump, and when it picks up any bit of pressure or movement, like if it's saying it's thinking that the fuel is already full, it would clip off and stop. Right? Let's say the person is getting to fill up and not a certain amount. Exactly. So the charger, if it's pushing current at a very, very, very fast rate, right? If it's pushing at a fast rate, the phone is going to be looking for the amount of voltage per second, all right, and how much the phone is supposed to have. But if it's charging so fast, or if it's pushing so fast, it could only hold so much per second, and the cells aren't actually being soaked with that current. A battery has in it something that's called a cell. It's not actually at 100%. It's actually at 70%, or sometimes, depending on the age of your battery, 60%, 50%. It gets worse over time, all right? But the point is, your battery is never, ever actually 100% if you're using a speed charger, all right? So this is, I'm going to unplug it here that I can show you. And I've been using my own custom cable. I won't even be showing that. Like, I mean, it's going to be there in the video if I do move around the camera, and you might see it. But this right here, the camera focus, this right here is my Nintendo Switch 2 adapter. And you could use any which cable you want here, all right? But this is a speed charger. If you plug anything into this thing here, this you call this what do they call these now? But it's what you plug the USB into, and then you plug into your phone. You could directly plug it into a wall, right? So this thing here, this generates quite a lot of electricity per second, and it could easily trick your battery. So the system, when Nintendo Switch 2 launched, obviously what I think affected people's battery life is the fact that people never allowed their system to charge properly. You can do that, but it does affect your battery, and the Nintendo Switch 2 obviously does have what I'd call in performance and quality, I'd say the Nintendo Switch 2 battery is medium. It isn't bad. It's just that you've been treating your Nintendo Switch 2 battery terribly over the past few years. It's about a year now, but since last year. But I'll explain. So most people then, as soon as they got their Nintendo Switch 2, right, they would have taken their Nintendo Switch 2, placed it directly in the dock. It has whatever juice it had before, after manufacturing, after you got it rid of your box. Placed it in a freaking dock, so its battery wasn't even 100% at all. And like I said, this adapter is what you use to connect to your Switch 2 dock. This is a speed charger. It's not going to be charging the battery evenly, carefully and properly, it's never going to get to 100%. And you have a switch 1, you're going to place your switch 1 in another dock, or maybe just keep it in handheld mode, place this thing there, and you're transferring data. Let's say you had maybe 30 or 40 games. Imagine someone might have this Switch 2 on for like 2 whole days, and of course that's 2 whole days the Nintendo Switch 2 is running without being turned off, without taking a break. That itself is going to deplete not the overall lifespan, but the performance of the battery, because every time it's going to be at less than 100 and it's never going to get there. So I'm going to tell you the fits, and I'm going to tell you the method to really get the best out of your battery. I've been thinking, honestly, I live on a really mean, really competitive land. I live on an island by the name Barbados. It's actually Barbados. It's named after the bearded fig tree, and that was pronounced as Barbados. So I say Barbados. I live on Barbados. I might have the flag in my description as I'm detailing certain things of this video at the bottom there. But the thing is, I've been thinking about keeping these details to myself, and I changed my mind. Do what you can in life whilst you still can. Trust me, whoever needs to hear this might change your life. Do what you can to best contribute to the world. That is literally the purpose of life. It's nothing else. Everything does contribution, and keeping the system in flow, I call it. All right, so I'm really I'd say literal and detailed and stuff. Anything that I come across that I use, that's my skill, gift, and talent in this life. Like I am very precise with just about anything I use and perform. So yeah. So there's a speed charger, and this is a normal charger. So this generates just the right amount of current. It doesn't charge too fast, anything of the sort. If you want your battery to return, right now I'd say you've got a hole. It can tap as well. 82%, that's decent. But if you want your Switch 2 battery to, say you're playing in handheld, you want to go on the go, and people complain about, especially if you're playing Switch 2 games, it's going to use a lot more battery. Obviously, it's a more graphically demanding game. If it's Nintendo Switch 2 title, that sort of stuff, it's definitely going to hurt the battery a lot. But so you can get the most out of the capacity of your battery, make it that it is as low as possible. It could be 5%, it could be whatever. Make sure your battery is nearly dead. And if you are lucky enough that you already have a Nintendo Switch 1 and you never sold it, like some people do, you could have afforded to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 as well as keeping your Nintendo Switch 1. You have that Nintendo Switch 1 charger knocking around, that is your best bet. Like if you're the type that doesn't even care about television display and this display is good enough for you, then you might find yourself using just this thing and never using your freaking I have some really cool tips for the Nintendo Switch 1 as well. There's a lot of people who don't even have one of these and they're just bucking on these. And depending on your life, your situation, what you're going through, I could understand that. And it's yeah, like I could understand because a lot of titles are still yet to launch. Monster Hunter Wilds doesn't have a demo on the Switch 2 as yet. It was just announced and that's it. Mario Kart doesn't have a DLC. You can wait. I'm telling you, you can freaking wait. But point is though, this Nintendo Switch 1 charger is going to be your buck right now. Stop charging with this. This is necessarily only needed if you are using the Switch 2 dock. The Switch 2 dock cannot operate with this. The Switch 2 dock needs the extra power capacity that this uses because, like I said, this is a speed charger. This is a speed, not a dongle, but it's something else. You call them a block, right? I think people call them a block, but it's something else you really call it. I think it's actually called a block, right? That you plug your USB cable into and get your phone all charging. Yeah. Well, this block is a speed charger. So you're about 15 minutes in. Good. And I just dealt with that. So you plug it in. Just to show you, I'm going to plug it in here. I'm going to give it some current. And you can see I'm actually plugging it somewhere through this lovely, yeah, convenience. And I'm going to plug it right here. And this is the top piece. And it actually charges. So that's the Nintendo Switch 1. See? That's a Nintendo Switch 1 charger. I have tape on there. It's not damaged or anything. I just put that on there for highlighting, you know, difference. And I have my cables all behind there. And I have one as well on my HDMIs. So this one is my Switch 2 HDMI. I put some tape on there. Although it's thinner and stuff, things can happen. You know, you're in a rush, you plug the wrong one into the wrong system. It's never going to happen here. I taped my Switch 2 one, and I have my Switch 1 one just there. Although it's bulkier, shit does happen. Alright, so, yeah. So, this charges, and it charges the battery, I'd say, a lot more carefully. All right, that's the best way to put it. It doesn't rush current into the system, so your battery gets the most out of its performance. And if it's 82, it's going to stay at 82 for quite a while. Then it's going to go down, especially if you're playing Switch 1 video games on the Switch 2. You're going to see a lot better performance. But make sure the only way you get this is if you lower your battery as low as possible and let it charge all the way up using your Switch 1 charger. All right, so that's out of the way. That's power. All right, that's power. So if you never knew that, you know this works not only for Switch 2. Any Android, any device that uses a charger, USB, make sure that you get a slowly charging charger. This saves you money. All the people that are walking around with cell phones and these power banks, and they've got their phone, you're damaging your phone. Another something, turn it off. It's impossible for Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 to turn themselves on once they're plugged in. I find that very annoying. But if you have a cell phone, like you have one for work and you have one, you could get two cell phones, one that people can call you on and one for business, files, stuff like that, work, right? That business phone, every day after work, you turn that thing off and you put it on the charger and let it charge while it's off. Like, well, if a device is running whilst it's on, this is the conclusive, this is the conclusion for the battery segment of my video. All right, so if you have a system on while it's running, that hurts the battery over time because it's never getting a full charge. It's always losing current as soon as it gets, and that kind of depletes the cell overall capacity over a few years. So to keep your battery as healthy as possible as it goes on, your best bet is to use a slow charger and charge it whilst it's off. But with your Switch, they're made to capacitate that. These are dock systems. I mean, come on, look at these things. All right, so they don't get that much damage compared to what could happen to a cell phone battery, especially how old your cell phone is. But make sure your battery is depleted as much as possible. It's charging from as low a point as you can muster at that day, whatever, 10%, something like that, and you charge it with a slow charger. If you don't know how to, there's some chargers that have like a little lightning logo on them with a circle or something. That's if it's a lightning charger, do not use that shit if you want battery. I'm saving you a lot of money. A lot of people right now in the electrical, in the selling chargers and stuff are going to hate me, but I don't give a shit. This is for the people. This is not for money. Then you're going to get more money the more you actually support the people because, you know, it doesn't make sense at first, but it really does. All right. So, yeah, battery out the way. Use your Switch 1 charger. Do not use the Switch 2 charger. If you're playing handheld, keep that in the dock. Leave that there. And if you're on the go, carry your Switch 1 charger with you or any charger that is guaranteed. You're quite sure if it's charging slowly, that's good. If it's charging too fast, stop using it and use a slower charger. All right. So just to give you an example, let me tap here. This only went down 1% since I had my charger in. But let's see, I could run something. I got a Switch 2 game here. I don't know. I'm gonna run this. All right. So another something. I did make a video on this already, but now I'm going on to visuals, and I'm gonna jump between systems. So there's something that needs to be said about the Nintendo Switch 1 that I'm sure a lot of people don't know. I do not have a freaking I don't have a password on the Nintendo Switch 1 all set up, so there's no need to, you know, go placing a system down and all that shit just to, you know, put in a password. So you can just open it up here, and yeah. So in the settings here, all right, in case you never knew about this, the in handheld mode, there's a reason the games are like that. So practically every single Nintendo Switch 1 title, that's the games that came for the Nintendo Switch 1, are rendered and created in, they're graphically rendered in what you would call 720. All right, so I'm onto the visual side of things. All right, so 720, 1080, we hear about this mostly these days. We're hearing about 4K, all the fancy people with their 4K displays, yada yada. All right, but the Switch 1 originally displays in 720, and you get what I call an artificial upscale to 1080. It's not actually 1080. The pixels are just being stretched to look like 1080, to fit a 1080p screen, whatever you're using. Most screens these days are actually 2K size screens, but they're not actually showing in a real, what I'd say, a literally correct real 2K resolution. They're being artificially upscaled into 2K, but the Switch artificially upscales its display to 1080. It's actually 720. All right, so I'm going to explain this using, if I had one, I wish, I'm going to make some updated videos in the future, and they're going to be totally awesome. All the editing and me showing stuff and stuff like that. But imagine you have a balloon. If I had everything there, I would have been able to do that right here, you know, pause the recording, play it back, and I'm actually showing you a balloon. All right, so say you have a balloon, all right, and you've got an image on that balloon. The image is kind of small, and you want it to show on a much larger display. The balloon itself is the display, all right? Imagine, literally, that's how it works. Because you're taking pixels and just multiplying them a bit more, that they show more on a screen, on a bigger screen, right? That's how it works, right? Understood? I hope you did, because I'm going to be going as quick as I can. I'm already 22 minutes in, and I don't want to make this an hour-long video without proper detail, with everything I touch on. All right? So the 720 display, when you take your balloon and you take it and you stretch that balloon, right? Anytime you take, for those of you who had birthday balloons with some logos on them, anything of the sort, you had a childhood, you'd know that when you take the balloon and you stretch it, the image on the balloon becomes blurry as it's being stretched. It's less defined, it's less detailed. So that's why some things can look terrible on, like, if you I know this is Nintendo, but for most people who had PlayStation 3s in the olden days, and they got a big TV and it wasn't set in the settings automatically, it would look terrible on a big television because it's being stretched. It's going to look terrible, especially those older TVs that weren't necessarily made for HD, and you got some composite cables for them. Long story short, the image looks terrible on a television if it's not upscaled properly. All right. Now, it's decent, and you won't notice it unless you actually go about doing this. All right, so I'm going to go into settings here on the Nintendo Switch 1, and I'm going to jump over to this is I just passed it, didn't I? No, I think it's TV settings. Yeah, so TV resolution, I already have it there. If I had a friend or a sibling or anything of the sort going in this thing, they'd be like, why the hell does he have his resolution set to 720? Is he weird? No, my friend. Like, the 720 looks 10 times more crisp, beautiful. You'd be shocked because the system is literally pushing the resolution that it is made for. Believe it or not, it looks amazingly well. 1080p is just, you know, if you want it to show on your big screen, and I'll get to that. There's a reason why I don't, you know, televisions have too much complex, some of them really unique crystals and stuff in their screens. They're going to give off a lot of odd light. I made an episode of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it was terrible. Like, you know, you can see all the detail, how gorgeous and realistic the graphics and stuff look in that thing, but it was giving off a lot of green lines and stuff like that, and I want to avoid that as much as possible. I'm also going to change my video descriptions to say that I have that I am going to be recording via a method where most of my videos are going to look a lot better if they're watched on if they're being watched on a cell phone or a tablet or anything of the sort, not a big television, the resolution is not high enough for that. So yeah, if you want the best quality, you're going to just boot up. People have got YouTube's signed into just about every device these days. You can easily watch on your phone or your tablet. Please do that, especially when I'm uploading my video game content that I recorded via cam. They're going to be best watched on a smaller screen. All right, so yeah, the 720p is ideal for freaking Switch 1. All right, like you could have your display, your actual television is going to just automatically switch over to 720 as well, and you're going to see the difference. It's a slight blur. A lot of people notice this. People who right now that for some reason they can't save up too quickly for a Nintendo Switch 2 as yet, maybe until Christmas this year, and you're waiting for that. You're gonna love this. You're gonna thank me. Go into your Switch 1 settings right now and change your display resolution in the TV settings. So what I did, I'll show you again, is at the very bottom, right above system, because system is at the very bottom. It can't go any lower. Let me turn up my audio. You can hear I'm actually doing this. This isn't, you know, a post video, right? So right here, right above system, TV settings, and at the very top there, 720. I've got it at full range. Whilst I keep my television on a different range, you know, that helps. That's a method as well. So you put your, if you want more realistic shadows and stuff like that, like darks actually look dark and there isn't the artificial glow I talk about, you're going to place your system at full range, and then you're going to go into your TV settings and place it at limit range for the resolution, and it's going to be balanced colors. Everything is going to look beautiful, I tell you. All right, so that's it for Switch 1. I'm going to be jumping back over to the Switch 2. So I made a video on this, just highlighting this, and the Switch 2 recently had an update. I think it was 22.0.0, and that update gives you something called the handheld boost mode. So you go into, I think it's accessibility? You kind of, you just turn it on, you never go back there. So I'm not tweeting. No, it's not. It is. God. It's not display, is it? It's in system. What? I think it is. Right. So you go into system at the very bottom again. This is on the Nintendo Switch 2 this time, and I've got to change my focus, the brightness settings, so that I can get And you go right here to where it says Nintendo Switch software handling. I wonder why they never use 1 in brackets, but I guess Nintendo likes to keep people confused. Like when we had the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo 3DS, then the Nintendo Wii, then the Nintendo Wii U. But yeah, Nintendo Switch should have a 1 in brackets so people would know the difference, and then just Nintendo Switch 2. Instead of just saying Nintendo Switch, people are going to think all the systems are the same again. I do feel for a lot of people who aren't too quick. You might get how I mean up there in the head. And Nintendo titles maybe do confuse them a lot, especially this thing. I feel for the people who maybe kind of dunce who are fooled into selling their 3DS to someone, thinking that all DS systems are the same for like a cheaper price or some shit. And this thing is a full-on console. It literally has ports from the Nintendo Wii. Donkey Kong Country Returns, that's on Nintendo Switch right now in HD. There's a 3D version on this thing. I know, right? Ocarina of Time that recently is getting remixed. They're trying their hardest best to pull people away from the Nintendo 3DS, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Star Fox launched for Switch 2. There's a Star Fox 64 3D on this thing. You can go look for that. You get it at a cheaper price. It's a very old game now. Star Fox 64 3D. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D is also on here. Whoa! Amazing stuff, right? Exactly. Yeah? Anyways, so this handheld mode boost, I'm just going to read what it says here. When enabled, this option causes the performance of Nintendo Switch software while undocked. So that's while you're playing it in your hand to run as if it were being played in TV mode. While this can result in improved visuals, it may also increase the system's power consumption, which comes into me bringing up before about this thing, the Switch 1. This is going to be very useful for Switch 2 owners. You want all of that power capacity you can muster at all. You need this. Stop using a Switch 2 charger if you're barely using it. keep your Switch 2 charger plugged in. So I think I'm gonna rest my system down. All right. Hold on a second. Excuse the black. I'm gonna rest my system down here, and I'm coming back. I promise. Obviously, I'm gonna get my Switch 2. All right. Let me just read. Let me just continue reading this. I'm so sorry. All right. So the effect of handheld mode boost. What I was gonna do is gonna get cable for the Switch 2 out of the box to show you what they did and why I think there's something really bad going on there. Nintendo has to change how they like ship the system parts, but I'll get to that after. The effect of handheld mode boost will vary based on the software. Some Nintendo Switch software will be unaffected. Like I think they're little games. I'll show you what they're speaking of right here, and then I'll get back to that. So I can continue reading. There's some games in here, right? That there's some particular video games in here that are like cell phone apps and stuff like that. They just launch at a certain resolution, and they keep that resolution no matter what on TV or handheld. There isn't any delays. So games like this, that is Pokemon Quest, that is also available on Android, iOS. Nice game. A lot of people will say it's kiddie, but no. Nintendo has its way of making just about anything challenging way more. Like a lot of babies and children cry playing these games. I tell you, they're not easy. Then Pokemon Cafe, this one, Pokemon Unite. I don't think they're affected in handheld as well. These sort of games are unaffected because they keep their general resolution. They're like cell phone apps, I call them. They're not too advanced, and they don't demand for that much graphics, and the system doesn't have to boost anything as much. But games like this, you see a major improvement. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak on a Nintendo Switch 1 is beautiful in handheld mode. Oh my god, gorgeous. All right, so let's go back. All right, jump to system, and all right, Nintendo Switch handling. All right, so the effect of handheld mode boost will vary. Like I said, has no effect on some software for Nintendo Switch 1. All right, some Nintendo Switch software will be unaffected, and this option has no effect at all on Switch 2 software, for Nintendo Switch 2, because this option forces TV mode operation. Some instructions may be incorrect or fail to operate correctly. Switch 2 demands a lot too much power, so the TV mode display is going to be using a lot more power that only the dock and this thing could muster. So it's like if you try playing a Nintendo Switch 2 game in handheld mode, you're just going to get that lowered resolution the system needs, so you don't have an oven holding in your hand, if you get what I'm saying. So the system doesn't get too hot, or it doesn't reach certain struggles in capacity. It is lowered in handheld, but Switch 1 games are gorgeous in handheld mode. All right, so you know, it's like you're trying to play a PS5, PS4 quality game in your hand. Expect the best only on television, but you'd see it's still pretty in handheld. I'd say Street Fighter 6 and other Mario Kart World keeps. Literally, there's not much difference between TV mode and handheld mode playing Mario Kart World. I was surprised, but because this option forces TV mode operation, some instructions may be incorrect or fail to operate correctly, such as touchscreen controls and stuff like that. All right, so at that, when it says that, I like to give examples as I go on. I'm just gonna boot. I'm gonna boot a Nintendo Switch 1 title here. I have all of these back in my case. Let's see, a Nintendo Switch 1, just about any, actually, because even if it uses touchscreen or not, if you go tapping around on the screen, they show you a notice on the top left of the screen that just tells you, oh yeah, that option, that feature is not usable in a handheld mode while using the boost mode option. All right, so I'm just gonna skip past the, until I get to a much clearer screen that isn't all black. Gotta wait for this thing to check my DLC. DLC checking is instant on PC, I find, and saving takes a bit more. While saving is instant on Switch and Switch 2, and DLC is instant on PC and takes a while on Switch on console. Very interesting. Just to check my DLC, is this normal? Does it take that long to check the DLC for the rest of you guys? and gals, or is it just because they've got practically all the DLC in this? I don't know. Whatever that is. Alright, so I'll go tapping around on my screen, and you'll see right here, the touch screen is disabled during handheld mode boost. So to emulate as much as possible without issues, trick the system, is literally what it's doing, is tricking the system that is actually displaying on a TV. This screen right here is a TV right now. This is the OS is being tricked into thinking that it's running on TV, and this Switch 2 handheld screen does have the technology to handle that. So this is one of the best ideas Nintendo ever came up with. I do not know why they did not launch with it. Maybe they were thinking to, and they had to get a few things out of the way before. But yeah, so that is what it means, even whilst that is running, because I just want to get back. In fact, just to show that this is instant as hell. So I'm going to hit X here, A closed already. Alright, let's just go back here, and I'll continue then on. As I go on, then I'll just be explaining to you all what every section of this thing means. Alright, handheld mode boost may prevent Nintendo Switch software from using the system's touch screens. So they're now saying it here. And will cause attached Joy-Con 2 controllers to be treated as a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller. Alright, to use other controllers, first detach the Joy-Con 2 controllers from the console. So say I'm playing something like, this uses two controllers. Very weird, and both of them can work at the same time whilst the system is running. So odd. Like, you could just take over one other controller. But something like Mario Kart, and I guess it could be a lot tedious, but I've got to place my system down again. Alright, hold on a second. And this thing is really specific, where it stops you from using your, you'll see what I mean. So I'm just going to plop my Mario Kart into the system here. I'm just going to plop my Mario Kart into the system here. I just went to get my case and place the, I don't want to go walking around my room. I've got reasons. I live in Barbados. These people have really, you need your privacy anywhere you live. But this place is really socially awkward. These people are like really savage. So I won't be giving every detail about my place. Like, this is enough. Seeing my freaking bookshelf and all that down there is already enough, I definitely say. So I think that's balanced enough lighting. I think that's good right there. That's perfect. So I'm going to boot in. And because this is running in handheld mode, I didn't just turn it off. This is a Switch 1 game running in handheld mode. Those other accounts, there's no one other than me using the system. My little sister, shortly after I got my Switch 1, she made an account. She never used it. She played some Mario Kart on there. I don't think it really saved anything much. Maybe just like a few races, and I never erased it because it's my sibling. I'm really specific like that. I just kept it on my system for reasons, I'm never going to delete it. Yeah, but I never use it either. It's so awkward. But yeah. So right, so this is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and see, I'm gonna get quickly. Let me drop this down here again. I'm gonna get my Pro controller, and this is on the Switch 2 mostly. This doesn't happen on it because there's no unique television mode. So the system is being tricked right now that these things I have plugged onto the side here, focus please, this one and this one, alright, is being tricked into thinking that those are one of these, alright, Pro controller. So if I go now trying to sync my let's see, I go out and change grip order, and I'm syncing my Pro controller right now. Alright, it's synced, you can see it there. Alright, press A on it, everything's fine because I'm in the menu, right? And I go here, I'm moving, it's synced, you can see it's going as a number 2 for some reason, because this one is a freaking controller already hooked in. It's like as if it's a Switch 2 Pro controller. It's already in there. The Switch 2 Pro controller has a audio jack for headphones and such, and the Switch 2 system itself has a freaking audio jack at the top here, so it kind of emulates that effect. That's how they got everything to work. Very genius. So it thinks that another controller is already synced and I can't use it. So in order to be able to use your let's say your other one, right, you'd literally have to detach your Joy-Cons and get the system then to resync with the other one, as though you're like desyncing your first controller and syncing back another one. Makes sense? Yeah. So with giving you kind of, oh my god, I just left the recording. Yeah, so I just left the recording, so sorry about that. I just left the recording software there by mistake. So this is, you know, that's why it kind of jotted off there. All right, so that you'd have to desync them and then sync your other controller, but I'll just leave that in there for now. And yeah, so it said right at the bottom, while handheld mode boost is enabled, attach Joy-Con 2 controllers to treat as a Pro controller. Press A when you're ready. All right, so that is what they're speaking on. For those of you who know nothing about these things, you maybe recently got one. Me making this video is going to be just for you, for sure. All right, so then, all right, I covered the visual, and as well I covered the battery. I think that's just about it, pretty much. All right. All right, so I'm gonna go back here in the settings. What I found, another issue that people had, especially with the Nintendo Switch 2, is the fact that when they're, all right, let's see and get this in focus, man, because I just jumped right back into recording and I didn't really even preset it like I did the first video. All right, I think that's fine. All right, their controllers seemed like talking about analog drift, and these controllers are perfect. I tell you, when I say perfect, I mean perfect. You do not have analog drift. There are a lot of updates that recently happened. People complain mostly about these ones. Some actually did have, and that's kind of sad. But sometimes the sensitivity in your analog is so off that it's so sensitive that you barely move your analog to the left or right. It's mostly noticed in games like Super Smash. You might mistakenly pull a move to the right instead of the left if you slightly nudge your analog, because the game is made for, alright, so I'll explain what I mean. Literally, you can get a PlayStation 4 controller, alright? You can get a PlayStation 4 controller and literally plug that thing using a USB into your Switch 2 dock, alright? Right into your Switch 2 dock. And plug a headphone, like a headphone, earphones into that PlayStation 4 controller and listen to your game through that controller. Like the easiest way, like say you want peace and quiet, and or someone in your house wants peace and quiet, and jumping into the audio as well. A lot of issues that people had with the system, the audio not being as, you know, as good on depending on your television and stuff like that. And you get the visuals, you want the audio as well. You can actually plug, believe it or not just a freaking earphone into that. You can plug just about any audio device that uses an audio jack, and it would play through there. Quite awesome, right? So the audio, right? What they did, the controllers are actually PlayStation 4. Like, they're not PlayStation 4 controllers. This is Nintendo, obviously, right? But they use controls that are hardware-wise similar to the PlayStation 4. That's how we can easily get all these ports from the PlayStation 4 and stuff like that. We have Devil May Cry 5 recently launching on Nintendo Switch 2. Devil May Cry 5, the Devil Hunters edition of all the extra DLC and stuff like that packaged in. Nintendo also always waits until a game is completed to, you know, they want to support it on the system. That's why Monster Hunter Wilds wasn't launched in the early. It could have been, believe it or not, but it wasn't, because Nintendo is all about quality. You might people might kind of want to argue that Nintendo is more about quality, but I think not. Nintendo is all about performance, and visual quality is what Sony's about. So you know, like input speeds for the controllers and stuff like that. These things right here, these here are programmed with, I'd say, PlayStation 4 controller technology, and there's kind of a handhold right now between Sony and Nintendo because of that. Like, it's similar tech in these things. So Nintendo Switch 1 titles like Super Smash especially, I'm going to get to why that happens, all right? These controllers are, I'd say, around PS3 or something of the sort, technology wise. So the analogs are way smaller, as you can see, and believe it or not, the analog and the buttons, all right, are the exact same size. I'm going to take my, it isn't breaking it, you can easily put it back on. I'm going to take that off. The analog for the Nintendo 3DS and the literal like joystick nub is literally the exact same size, all right, as the analog nub in the Switch. So they literally took the, because they wanted to make a handheld, make it as cheaper as possible, easier to just, it is having way more advanced technology built in and software updated and stuff like that compared to the 3DS. It's not the exact same controller, but the D-pad buttons and everything are the exact same size. They literally just ported over these buttons into the Nintendo Switch. So what I'm getting at is that the technology is so different that if you go playing some games on the, you can actually sync your Switch 1 Joy-Cons to your Nintendo Switch 2. I'll show you right here, all right? So you can use these as well for those who are like that backwards and they didn't even know that you can do this, that maybe it only uses Nintendo Switch 2 controllers. No, it doesn't. No, it does not. I'm going to tap on change grip order that it could pick it up. And it, look, paired, just paired with a nice Switch 1, and it has the unique, animation and stuff like that, and logo of the Joy-Con ones as well on the screen. Kind of cool, right? So it's going to say paired. I don't think I pressed it long enough. It should say paired. Or it did already and I missed it. I don't know if it's dead. I don't know what's going on here. Alright, there it is. Because this thing should be working. I don't know. That had me scared for a bit there. It was like, holy shit. My Joy-Con one's dying. I had these things only for like 4 years now. Why? Or like 3 years, I think. I think it's 3 years. Whatever's. But you can see the actual Switch 1. Yeah, kind of cool, right? Yeah, so these things are operational as well, but the controls for the Switch 1 games, some of them that need precision movement, like the Super Smash that I just mentioned, this game needs the Switch 1 controllers for precision, I'm quite sure. Like, I mean, if you've got really big hands, and I'm not being insulting, I'm just being raw, to the point honest, if you have big hands, large hands, the Switch 2 Joy-Cons are going to be much more comfortable for you. But when it comes to what the video game was created for, what it was made for, literally, so the Switch 1 Joy-Cons are the best bet. So what that causes is the delusion or the illusion that the Joy-Cons are drifting or that they have issues, when it's just that when I do this, like, all right, let me focus from the, all right, when I do this, I barely move my finger. You see how sturdy these are, all right? They're not moving at all. But if I take this off, all right? If I take off my Switch 2 Joy-Con, I barely do this. There's literal slight movement. You see that? Whoa. Like, you can see it moving on the screen. I barely do that, right? Like, any little movement. I think that's something to do with the technology in PS4 games. It takes like precise movement and adds it. I'm barely moving this thing and some of them go in. So the game picks it up and say you're trying to do an upbeat with Cloud, like in a claiming hazard where he takes his sword and like kind of springs up into the air. And you were pointing that to the left, it might go to the right because you slightly push to the right. It's not made for this. This is too sensitive for Super Smash. This is a Switch 2 controller. And if you're playing Nintendo Switch 1 Super Smash Ultimate, I do believe it needs a freaking Switch 2 edition. So that's controls and audio all in one. You can use freaking headphones with this dang thing. Even if you don't have a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, you only have a Switch 1 controller like I do have. If you have a PlayStation 4 controller knocking around, there's no audio jack at the bottom of this. This is an original Switch 1 Pro controller. I don't have an audio jack there. Alright? You can easily as much get, you know, your experience through that. I made a video literally showing that. I placed that in the video description below so that you can find that more easily. It's in the description of this video. I have a direct link to that video showcasing the PlayStation 4 controller being used with the dock to listen to audio. I even put it up to the microphone of the cam that you could hear it. It's playing through the freaking headphones. Kind of awesome. If you never knew about that with the Switch 2, and it's like a really cool feature, then go ahead, watch that video. Get your freaking PS4 controller hooked to your dock and go like use your headphones. Enjoy yourselves. Hopefully Nintendo never patches it out. I've been saying with every update, please just test it to see if it still works. We're not 22.5.0. So it still works. I can tell you as of this video, 22.5.0, the PS4 controller still works with the dock. And that is awesome, quite interesting. All right. So the audio, you can easily use, I don't know, some boombox, anything of the sort, some home theater system hooked up via an audio jack with that controller. And it's going to get whatever audio feed should be coming through your dock directly sent to your PS4 controller and then directly to your audio system. And you could have like the home experience you're expecting. If in case you don't have a television with as good you know, an audio system. That's the way you get aside with that. All right, that's how you get aside with that. So internet, this is another one. This is a very important one, and I guess it's fate that caused me to mistakenly end off the other video. I hope it's saved correctly or this would be just, that would be terrible. I doubt it works that way. It's just going to end off and save. I hope so, because it didn't actually hit stop. I like mistakenly closed the program that was recording. But anyway, so internet, all right? So this is one of the most important ones because this is 2026 and most people are playing video games through the internet. I have in here, I have the game virtual cards sent over to my Switch 1 and I play them on my Switch 1 as of the reason that the Nintendo Switch 2 Wi-Fi is not as good. And it is really good, to be honest. The way it's programmed to run, this is going to be a very complex area of the video. I'm gonna have to fuse those two videos, the first part and this. Anyways, all right. So without being too boring, depending on what hour of the day or night you're watching this, and it make this a whole school lecture. We know what 5G is, right? All right. I could imagine a class and the children are still being like, ready to like fall into boredom. And like, no, I know what 5G is. It's like really fast internet. Some random kid. Yeah. So 5G is one of the more recent ones. Then there's 6G right now and there's 7G. But the Nintendo Switch 1, right, uses 5G perfectly. When I say perfectly, I mean perfectly. This thing has been created for, when it first launched, 5G wasn't really widespread as yet, but it was created with 5G technology inside of it. And the Switch 2 has 6G technology. So what 6G does, 6G sits on the 3G, that's a 2.4 wavelength. I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to go into my settings, and you can see in fact, then again, I don't think it's good I'd be showing that my MAC address and all that shit. But long story short, if you have you can go into your settings and there's something that shows the gigahertz, and the gigahertz, the GHz is the that's how fast the internet is. That's the type of internet that you have. If it's 5G, it's going to say 5 GHz. All right. If it's 3G, it's going to say 2.4 GHz. So it's 3G. Well, when running on 5G, I found I live like in a lower, I'm actually on a lower, I say lower floor. The Wi-Fi router is above, like up the stairs and on a floor above here. And that's kind of a distant range compared to what some people are accustomed to using the internet from. And this thing still manages, I'm going to show you, I'm not showing off, this is literally a part of the video because of that, all right? I'm not showing off, I'm just showing you that this is what the Nintendo Switch 1 is capable of, all right? So I'm going to have this connected to my 5G, just turn off my airplane mode, let this thing automatically connect. I'm going to use it for this video. I'm not going to play it too long. I'm just going to be showing you that it's freaking operating as though it's playing on the freaking console. And maybe this is sad timing because as of making this video, we already have the digital versions being readied for the Nintendo Switch 2. And for that reason, these cloud versions are still operational until 2027. But July 2027, but they have already been removed from the eShop, so that's going to lower the stress on the servers by a whole lot. And I'm going to be using the most demanding one, the one that uses the most internet, the one that uses the most Wi-Fi bandwidth and the most graphics. All right, so I'm going to place this more in front of me. This light is really dang annoying here. I forgot to put my nub back onto the 3DS. Dang it. I don't want to. There we go. Let me open you properly, safely, before, you know, slip that back on there. Good. I'm going to get to this as well. Alright. But I have this thing loaded up already. Dang, light is annoying as hell, man. I'm going to turn my light off for this. You can see the graphics a lot better and stuff like that. Way better, to be honest. Alright, so and no distractions in room as well. I could more easily get a much better, get a much better focus on the screen, much better display that you can see that I'm not like tricking you all, you guys and gals. Alright, I'm putting this in performance mode or graphics mode. I'm going to use graphics mode. Alright. And this is freaking a handheld mode that I'm playing this on. This is not playing on your television. So the fact that this could use graphics mode and still run this well is going to prove to you that I'm not lying. Alright. I'm all the way in my house. Like so far from the router right now. Like literally far away from this freaking router. And this is still going to be playing quite well. This is the Nintendo Switch 1, mind you. This is not the Switch 2. Alright, for the time being, let me just turn the light back on and focus my cam. Look, you people. Freaking Switch 1 that this is running on. You turn my light back off. Alright. Get this thing back into proper focus. Alright, come on. All these dang intro cutscenes. I don't think this scene is like scattering enough. I have it focused here. It's perfect for every other scene. Alright, good. And yeah. Title logo. I'm just gonna load one of my, and that's instant, right? I just press A and Y. Y loads the main storyline. And look at this loading bar. Look at the speed on that for a Switch 1 running in handheld mode. This isn't even running on the television. The dock actually gives the system more power, more torque, you'd say. And it's already done loading. Like, what the hell? What the freaking hell? But even whilst the servers are stressed by users, this thing was running like amazingly well. Look at this. Alright. So I'm just gonna run around, all right. And even this area right here should be laggy as hell. This is a perfect example for you where it's running perfectly, even though it's attacking. Let me just spam the A button and attack some guys. I'm at level 99, so I'm not even worried. But it's because I'm holding the cam whilst I don't have I don't have a stand or anything. Come on. And this is like playing on the console, isn't it? Proving me correct, right? This is like playing on the freaking console. I think I've got this a little low. I'm gonna turn it down a bit. And X, I think is this one. Come on. Yeah. Oh, damage. Yeah, so I'm not even really playing this as much. And for reasons, I don't know how the servers like to operate the people, if they're that easy on us or not. But I'm going to be making my way to the freaking entrance, saving this again. You see, this is weird. Why do you have to go, you know, do all that? But I've got my reasons just to get them to stop spawning as if I'm leaving. I'm going to come back. I think they left already. The music, once the music dissipates, the battle music changes off, like they're gone, just so that I could get this saved and boot that out of this thing, because this is playing on the cloud. As even if you take your system and you just stand here doing nothing, the server boots you off, because that's like using the server without good use, and it's like you're just using the bandwidth for nothing, and you get booted off, things like that. So I'm just gonna save my game and get over here. Alright. Yeah, so it runs perfectly. Like, that was lagging, like, none at all. Perfect performance. Perfect. And this is on the Nintendo Switch 1, running in handheld mode. And I'm far away from my router, a floor below. Yeah. So, the reason I showed you that, right? That was this Switch 1 running an online cloud game via, you know, there's Resident Evil 8 and 7 and stuff like that on the cloud as well for Switch 1. Although I think I think those are removed by now. I think they released 8 and 7 and stuff. I think they're releasing those for Switch 2 as well. But if you can still get those, I didn't even check, they're available as well. But the reason I showed you that is the Switch 1 is perfect at 5G. But I realized that the Switch 2, although this is a Switch 2 that literally does not have any hardware faults at all Switch 2 are like this. I think they designed these more so for what I would say is Ethernet. Let me turn my light back on, and I'm going to grab a cable. If you know what a phone line Ethernet cable is, I'm going to get my Switch 2 port right now, and I have got my hand blocking my cam. Let me just, yeah. Alright. So I'm going to get my Switch 2 dock, and I'm going to show you what I mean, what I'm referring to, trying to get my cables unplugged, that I could get this thing in my hand. I don't want to drop it. Alright, there we go. Alright, so let me get my camera on this thing. If you've got a Nintendo Switch OLED, it already has, Jesus, this thing is, because this dock is black, everything's got to be black these days. Dang annoying, and it's really difficult to focus on something black sometimes. But point is, there is an Ethernet slot in here as well. Let's see, come on. Yeah, so black is very repellent of light, but you can see an extra dot. There's the HDMI. Then up here at the very top up there is the USB port, or you can see them more clear now as I'm putting light directly onto them. The second one down is the HDMI, and right there at the bottom is the Ethernet port. So like if you have a phone line, instead of plugging into the phone, you can plug it here, and you would have direct internet through that. It is actually able to use LAN. You can see LAN right there in the light. LAN. This one is HDMI out, and that's AC adapter, right? Well, the LAN is the best bet for this thing. You get like instant downloads, like in gigabytes and stuff like that. I would not recommend you use this in a household where other people are using the internet, like for work and stuff like that, or for like anything really, because this thing is going to eat the internet up through that method. The Switch 1 as well, I do think before there's been some updates and it doesn't affect the internet as much, but I'm on to internet now. The Switch 1 has perfect 5G. the Switch 2 struggles with 5G. To use 5G, you definitely need to have your internet, you need to have your Switch 2 as close to the router as possible, or else it gets really slow in connection, disconnects randomly. This thing is made for 6G, and I'm going to get, now that I've detailed the performance differences, I'm going to detail why. It's not because the Switch 2 has less or weaker hardware. It is because 6G, there's something, I don't know why tech people make these things so complicated to the point that people like me, I could have been just playing a game video right now. I could have been continuing my Monster Hunter series, but I told myself I've definitely got to make this video first, and I'm going to do so. All right. So the freaking, where the hell did this come from? Screw in my, all right. So the 6G uses the 2.4 gigahertz, and then it shares bandwidth with the 5G gigahertz to create 6G. But then actual 6G, which they called 6E, sadly the Switch 2 does not have that. I wonder if we might have models in the future that, a future Nintendo Switch 2 model that actually has 6E in it, or 7G even. That'd be very useful. But as of right now, the Switch 2 is only 6G, so it's actually using 2.4. So long story short, you're not going to have that level of performance at a distance with 5G on a Nintendo Switch 2. It's really laggy. It plays as though, if you already had, I'm going to tell you this, all right? I don't know if it's because this is a V2, like I showed in the very beginning of my video. This says HAC001 and then an extra 01. So this is a V2 model. This is a later, newer Switch 1 model, all right? Unless, I don't know if this is why my 5G is so good and the original Switch 1 doesn't even have 5G that's that good. But whatever it is, people have been complaining about how bad the performance for the cloud versions are, and that's why they made sure to get them on it. Most people don't have internet that's that good anyway. Like, a lot of people are dying in their houses. They've got like 4 and 5 siblings, or they've got mom and dad doing work on their Wi-Fi, and then they've got their siblings all over the place, always on the internet with like Roblox and Fortnite, and then someone is going to be sending this to them through email, so they've got to download their package for their college submissions, and this and the next and the third. And you understand, like, the internet is always being used. Someone is going to be using the internet to like video call someone at work and stuff like that, right? So what I'm getting at, oh god, my Switch 2 locked. I've got to unlock that again. Say I want to use it for whatever means in this video. I'm gonna rest this down and put that in. All right. So the Nintendo Switch 1 has perfect 5G. But alright, I'm going to wait until they pick that up again. Jesus, trying to put this in too fast is, I guess because I'm doing this video, it's going to be a little more difficult. Alright? But yeah, the 5G on the Switch 2 is so weak because it is made to use the 2.4 or the 3G and share data with the 5G. It's not made to connect with the 5G. So if you have anything, the same Kingdom Hearts Cloud or whatever else, you're going to send those to your Switch 1 if you have one to play on there, because this thing is terrible at 5G, and 5G gets better performance either way. But if you have only the Switch 2, I'd say you make sure you connect to a Wi-Fi network that is 2.4. Make sure when you go into your Wi-Fi settings, I'm going to avoid going in there at all, because I don't want my Wi-Fi information getting out. People are very hacky these days and all that shit. All of it shows up in there, and I find that very unsafe. But I'm not going to be an idiot or a fool who do that right now anyways. All right. So make sure that you connect to the 2.4 for your Switch 2, or you're not going to be getting good performance at all. All right. So there we have it. That's the internet. The Switch 2 needs 2.4. The Switch 1 can perform on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. All right. If you're close enough to your router, let's say you have your router right there and your switch 2 is right next to it, you might experience good enough performance there. But if you're like a block away, if you're like a floor away, or a few doors down or whatever, I would recommend you use 2.4 gigahertz settings. And if it's a 5G you have to work with, do not use the cloud games. They're going to be terrible on the Switch 2. Games like games that I've been showing earlier as well, Pokemon Unite and stuff like that. This might be an older image by now. These games are always updating, and I do not have my system set to automatically update stuff. That is another something. If you will find that your system is always being slow and stuff like that, or cutting off connections and stuff, make sure that you have, so I'm going to go into my settings. This is another something that is also bundled with helping you with your Wi-Fi. All right, I'm going to make a part 2 to this for some other things I found as well, but this video is getting really close to the end of the memory space for my cam. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go into, let's see, I think it's system, internet settings. All right, so no, I don't think it's that. I think it's data management, and let's see, where is it? I think it's manage software. Now, manage software is directly managing these, like everything you've got installed is somewhere in here, man. It's somewhere in here. But you can go in and set your system to stop automatically updating software, and that way the system isn't always it isn't always locking off other like connections and stuff like that. It's going to cause way less issues. All right, software auto updates. Right here at the bottom, you go down all the way down the system section of your settings, and you check, make sure it's gray, make sure it's not like that, make sure it's like this, and you're fine and good to go. I had this offline, so I didn't have to worry about this, starting to do stuff in the background. Yeah. So I'm going to end this video off there. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, you learned a lot in this video. Well, I am very glad I've been able to do that for you. And yeah. So last thing that I mentioned for the internet section, 5G for Switch 1. All right. Whoa, difference in brightness is crazy, man. And yeah, I've got this really bright. And this is at what? I think this is like all the way. No, what? Anyways, so 5G for Switch 1 and 2.4 or 3G for Switch 2. All right, because this uses a lot more demand, and 5G, it's made that it has the best performance. 5G might not be as stable through all that distance, so the system is not made to allow connection that far away from a 5G router on your Switch 2. You're better off using a 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth router. All right. So yeah, if you enjoyed, you can click that like button, leave a comment as well. Check my description for that video on the PS4 controller, hooking that to your dock, just literally using a Type B. This is the USB that older phones used before the USB. I almost said router again. Before the USB was rounded fully. There was a one with a round end and a flat end, the Type B USB, the one before what we have today. You could use that, plug that into your PS4 controller, plug the other USB, the USB end into the dock of your Switch 2, and your Switch 2 would detect it as a wireless charger, as a wireless controller, and then you could just plug your whatever audio device you want in there and get some awesome audio out, man. You don't have to play through your television all the time if the Switch 2 is awesome. All right, you can do that with your Switch 2 Pro controller as well, but because it's not wired, it is way less stable. The audio is worse. Having a wired controller connected and used for audio is like seriously awesome. I've been using it for Mario Kart World and things like Monster Hunter Rise and stuff, and the performance is so much. The audio, the bass, just having a headphone in your head, you hear everything you would have heard as low. You can have a TV so loud, and there's certain details you'd never hear unless you use headphones. Like, that's amazing, having the ability to use your headphones. So PS4 controller, I have that link in the video description. All right, so Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Whenever you're watching, this has been Mr. Pokemon 907. Until next upload, thank you for watching.